We're doing this March wrap-up as a vlog style this time, and right now it's the beginning of March, so this is a little bit meta in that sense, time travel-y, if you will, but we're here at the beginning of March and I want to talk to you about some of the things I've been reading while I clean up this mess that is my room. I'm cleaning some things in the next room, the guest room, because my cousin's daughter is actually coming to stay with us for about a week, and I have been just throwing things in that room. It is a disaster, honestly, but I have been trying to make like a real attempt to clean up this space. I'm actually listening to a podcast now and not reading. I was reading 14 Days, which is a compendium of stories written by various different artists during the pandemic. The storytelling device, I guess I should say, is there's a person who becomes the new landlord person. What is that called? It's not an RA, but it's basically that. And everybody starts to, get to know each other through different stories that they're telling on the rooftop during COVID. So everybody goes up there and like bangs on the pots and pans and stuff for all of the healthcare workers. And then one of the people there starts to make a suggestion for everyone to tell stories, and they start sharing. I am over halfway through this at this point, and I'm like racing to the end because I know my audiobook's getting returned, but I was enjoying it for a certain period of time. Some of them are fictional stories that they're telling, some of them are about people that they know, so they have a very large distance from COVID itself, but it is still inside of the reference of everyone struggling during the pandemic. I don't have a huge issue with that itself as the main event that's occurring, but I do feel like at this point, this is like, I don't know, the 25th person's story, and I'm just zoning out where I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything. And I think the problem with that is, if it's a short story collection by itself, usually you're reading a few pages, and that is one story, and then you're done. And you might feel like, I want closure, but generally you're like, I'm done. The problem with this is we're just getting some story and there's no callback to it later, and it feels like there should be that there because it's obviously taking place inside of the context of something larger. It just doesn't feel like it matters. I would almost rather this just be a separate collection. And at first I didn't realize this was the framing device. I thought this was one person's story. Now the thing I do think is very interesting about the short story collection is there are many, many famous authors that contributed to this short story collection, but instead of saying like, this is this story title by this author, it's just, again, inside of the framing device, and you don't know which author actually wrote which story that's being told by each of the different residents. There's something in the back that will say like, this story was by this person. This one was by R.L. Stine. This one was by the woman who wrote Sex and the City. This is by the Magic Tree House lady. Some of the stories are just very like erratic and all over the place. Other ones are very captivating and you're really sucked into it. So I think it's kind of fun to guess who did what. Like, this one's by Dave Eggers. Okay, I can maybe tell. The problem, again, is that these are supposed to be oratory stories because they're people sitting on a roof saying, here's what happened. But then a lot of the stories that they tell are not written in such a way you would ever experience a human being talking to you in dialogue. Billowing fabric that clung to them so tightly as if it were a skin-tight suit, and just like going on and on and on, and so descriptive in these tiny little ways, which would provide context for a written story, but just sounds weird as an auditory story. It's especially exemplified in the audiobook, so it just feels a little bit off in that sense. I don't dislike it. I don't have a rating for it yet because I'm not done, but that's sort of my feeling of it. Anyway, I'm going to be continuing to clean everything around here, so stay tuned for the next update. Doesn't it look so beautiful and clean and empty? And secretly I have things still in this corner, but like it is actually pretty empty. I do still have things piled up over here, but these are literally like whatever. It's just stuff I wear and I'm not ready to do laundry with it yet, so it's fine. And it's all clean. It's beautiful. So productive. It is morning on the 8th and I finished 2 books this morning. I finished Toad Words and Other Stories by T. Kingfisher, which was very good. It is a fairy tale short story collection. The longest story in it is Boars and Apples, which I was working on for a really long time, kind of a baby at reading ebooks and everything like that. I finished it on my phone this morning when I couldn't sleep. And then I also read Bingo Love, which is a graphic novel about two queer black women who fall in love when they are, I want to say like 13 or something like that, and they become best friends and eventually like confess their love for each other, but their families pull them apart, and then they end up married to two different people for 50 years until they finally reconnect, and then they're like, I still love you so much. It was like a very emotional type of journey. It was still very wholesome and sweet and cute, but it also did deal with a lot of the like grief of being closeted for so long and the emotional damage of like, if you wanted to get a divorce, like that would tear families apart because there's like children and grandchildren and all kinds of people involved. So it was very good, but there were some weird sci-fi elements because it does take place in the future that kind of took me out of the story. So altogether it was good, but it was like a little weird in that way. Hello. It's been a couple days, and unfortunately, two books that I was reading were returned back because they were audiobooks and my borrowing time lapsed. That's out, but I have actually just completed a book, A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. Some time ago when I first started my booktube channel, I read The 10,000 Doors of January like everybody else was doing. I didn't feel like it was a big 5-star read like everybody else thought. I think there were some elements of it that did not really appeal to me, especially with like the wrap-up and the ending and stuff like that, but I am such a sucker for fairy tales. Any kind of dark fairy tale retelling, I'm in. I ended up picking this one up as well as the sequel many months ago on Hoopla, and then throughout the months I've just been kind of like renewing them and taking them out again and again and again, but I finally got to them, and I'm actually about 30% of the way through the second book. Now, I will say, both of these books are littered with pop culture references, and often that really takes me out of a story, so I think that if you caught me on a bad day, I would be like, I don't like this that much. It's constantly talking about, like, you know, Lord of the Rings and like porthole keys from Harry Potter, although it's also saying like, hey, we don't talk about what Joanne has done. So I feel like that can get on some people's nerves, but I ended up actually really enjoying all of the first book. There are still some of those elements from Alex E. Harrow's writing that are not like 100% tuned to my personal taste, and honestly, that's not something I require of authors that I read, because how do you do that for every reader? But I thought it was really fun. I really liked the concept, which I will explain now after just talking in circles. A Spindle Splintered follows a girl named Xenia Gray, and she has been diagnosed with a terrible disease that is basically destined to kill her by the time she turns like 21 and change. Her whole life she's grown up with fairy tales, including Sleeping Beauty, and she is really related to and kind of like hyper-focused on Sleeping Beauty. For her 21st birthday, her best friend sets up this elaborate Sleeping Beauty themed birthday party thing inside of a tall tower in town. Everyone is dressed like the fairies. There's a spindle, and she at the end of the night is like, alright, let me do the whole thing. I'm gonna prick my finger. And when she does, she gets transported to another world. She sees like all these different fractured universes of Sleeping Beauties, and she hears one calling out for help, and she ends up going there and meeting Primrose, who is a Sleeping Beauty. I am also a very big fairy tale nerd, especially like Grimm's fairy tale nerd, so I knew a lot of the different variations on the story. There's more in this than what I knew going into the book, if you're like a very big fairy tale nerd, and I think it's super interesting because it is a twist on everything, while Xenia is also dealing with the fact that like she is still dealing with her terminal illness and she doesn't actually know how long she has left to live. When it wrapped up, we get the basically like premise for what's going to happen in the second book, which is to say that Xenia is going to go on with the rest of the time that she has left to try to save other Sleeping Beauties in their fairy tales. But when the second book picks up, she has been doing that for 5 years. So she gets pulled into a different universe than she's used to being in, and instead it seems to be the story of Snow White. But instead of being called in by a princess, she's actually called in by the evil queen. Now, there was a very corny pop culture reference, which was like, the Wicked Witch of the East, bro, you're gonna look at me and tell me that I'm wrong. And I was like, that's taking me out of the story for sure, but it was fun. Also, I wanted to do a little haul. So this weekend I went to New York and I did a very long, really fun Chinatown crawl. And I also ended up stopping at this place to get Korean skincare. I don't know anything about Korean skincare, but some of my friends do. So I bought a lot of sunscreen. I bought this, and I bought this, and I also bought this. And this is a sunscreen stick. And I just know that these are good sunscreens, and this one smells like roses. Very apt, actually, for what I've been reading. And then also we ended up going to the Blick store while we were out there, and I got some more white Jelly Roll pens and a Tombow Fudenosuke pen. I already have Tombow Fudenosuke pens, but I just wanted to stock up again just in case. So these will be very good for my bullet journaling. A Chinatown food crawl is literally peak everything. And also we did that to celebrate the fact that I am starting a new job really soon. And then on Sunday, my boyfriend, my mom, my sister, and I all went to go see MJ, the musical, and that was really good. Like, I have seen a lot of musicals, and obviously there are many talented people, but wow, I mean, the people playing Michael Jackson sounded and acted and had the same exact mannerisms as him in every single way. Like, the speech patterns and like the softness of the voice and the way that they would do like different inflections. It's just like, it was mind-blowing. I've never seen anything quite like that before. Anyhow, I'm going to move on, and I will update you the next time I have a reading update, probably when I finish A Mirror Mended, which is the second book in this fairy tale duology, and we'll see what else I pick up. Hello, I have finished A Mirror Mended. I liked it. I will say this one had more pop culture references that definitely took me more out of the moment. Both stories definitely require you to suspend your disbelief quite a bit, so going in with that expectation and knowing it's a very short audiobook that's just very entertaining and everything like that, I think it's still really enjoyable. I thought there was a really fun reveal around the 3/4 mark that made a lot of the revelations for everything that was going on feel earned and worth it. Things wrapped up, like, it made sense, but it did feel like relatively fast. Overall, I liked it. I gave the first book 3.75 stars, running up to 4, and I gave the second book around like a 3.25 star rating, basically rounding down to 3 on Goodreads. And I am now listening to the audiobook for a collection of short stories called I Would Really Prefer You Not... I always forget the name of this book. I'd really prefer not to be here with you right now. There's a frog on it who's like this. Does that help? I'd really prefer not to be there with you, which is generally like literary fiction. There was just this story I read around the 30-something% mark with a woman's mother who committed suicide, but then she kind of comes back as like a haunted ghost who is causing a lot of havoc around the neighborhood. So that was a very harrowing story, really made you think. And now I'm on one that's called Gaslighter's Lament, which I'm finding very interesting. And this is like AI robots that are assigned to help people gaslight other people in their life, and the ways that they would describe how they would coach people through gaslighting was like, whew, man, that's the thing where they like, you know, they ask you all the time, like, are you okay? Because like you're acting so strange, but they're all doing things that are influencing your behavior. Like, they'll talk more quietly and say that you're keeping the TV on for too high of a volume for too long, and by doing that, you're making this person feel like they're crazy. It's really unhinged. Then there's like a twist to that And I kind of like that kind of flips it on the person, where it's like, who's really being gaslit? Like, what if there's that self-awareness for the victim? I think that's really cool. I've really enjoyed a lot of the stories in this collection so far, and I have been kind of on a short story collection kick. I also want to finish these two. I have basically only just started Fragile Enchantment, and that's really bad because this is my book club pick for the Winers Book Club, and we need to discuss this super fast. So I am going to make more progress on this. And then What Feasts at Night I got as an ARC a while ago, but I have gotten some small percentage of the way through it, and I wanted to finish it pretty soon because I really like T. Kingfisher's work. She also writes a lot of dark, twisted fairy tales, much like Toadwords and other stories. But this one is not as much of a fairy tale, it's more of just a straight up horror. The first book in this series having been a retelling of The Fall at Usher House. And I don't think this one is a retelling of anything, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. I am like very quickly moving along through my audiobook list, mainly because a lot of things are going to be returned within the next like week and a half or so. So I'm trying to make good progress and everything, but luckily I only have like 5 books out right now instead of my usual like 12. So slightly more manageable than usual. Finally have a second to update you. First of all, shirt appreciation, because I love this shirt and it's finally so warm that I can actually wear this. I finished I'd Really Prefer Not to Be Here With You, which is the name of the book. I loved that book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was really good. It's a collection of short stories, each of which having a very like slightly creepy dark vibe. Well, no, they were all dark, but a slightly creepy vibe. Not in a way that like it is a horror scary story per se, but it was always deep and emotional and kind of philosophical, and I really, really liked it. I really want to read more things by this author. I also spent a considerable amount of time when the audiobook ended looking up all of the audiobook narrators, because there were different ones for different stories, and there's a particular narrator that I was like, I know that voice. I don't remember what other thing I've heard her narrate before, but I really, really like her voice. So I was going through every single narrator until I found her. Her name is Exie Sands, and I just really like the way her voice kind of sounds like, this sounds mean, but like it sounds like a little bit like tired and craggy, but like in the most perfect like unlikable female protagonist type of way. Like she is the person I want narrating all of my favorite genre of books, which is typically that. And again, I'm trying not to say this in a really insulting way because that doesn't sound like a compliment, but I promise that I mean it as a compliment. I am also almost finished with How the World Really Works, which is a nonfiction book that just talks about very, very big concepts in terms of like climate change and how would we actually go about trying to solve something like that realistically. Food shortages, these very important topics that I think are usually given like a very broad stroke solution, but this is talking about like, this is how things actually work. This is the history behind everything. And therefore, if you were going to come up with a solution, we need to be cognizant of all of these factors. It's not exactly like a doom and gloom type of book, although it's definitely very serious. So I've been like picking this up on and off in between other books, but I don't mean this in a totally bad way, but I'm kind of excited to be done with it because it's not really like an extremely thrilling book, and I've just been kind of in the mood for something different. I mean, I flip-flop between books all the time, and I'm also like, I just keep picking up more and more books. I'm also reading a D&D module from Tales from the Yawning Portal because my boyfriend was talking with me about it, and he was like, have you never read a module before? They're really great and they're really useful. And I was like, are they? And then I read a couple from Keys to the Golden Vault, which is the new D&D book that came out kind of recently, and I bought the special edition for him, and was reading some of it and I was like, wow, this is great. And then I read Tales from the Yawning Portal, or I'm reading part of it that he recommended to me years ago, and I'm like, huh, I like these. This is great. I don't know why everybody on D&D YouTube is always like, forget modules, they're terrible. And it's like, I don't take D&D YouTube advice without at least several grains of salt. I'm also, by the way, heading to D&D, but I just have a lot of time to kill. I dropped off my sister at this community event, and I'm just like waiting in this parking lot for a while because it's like 30 minutes to my friend's house to play, and I have like an hour and a half to kill. So, content. Okay, I've seen these before in a video about a video. Nobody addressed these, but I'm so curious. Playing that Girl Scout can do energy to your day with scents inspired by your favorite cookie flavors. These words don't belong together. Okay, this just smells like lemon dish detergent. The thing is, this one does smell good. Why is everybody trying to make everybody eat soap and stuff like that these days? Your favorite part of the vlog? It's me in the book aisle of Anywhere, just zooming in on books and telling you what I think of them. I like how small this book is, and it's fun to hold. I have this. I haven't read it. I wanted to read it so bad that I basically pre-ordered it and didn't touch it. Greetings! Gothic Ken I've heard things about. I've also heard a lot of people talking about this. I read that. I haven't read that yet, but I watched the movie. I hated that book. I hated that book. D&D. Very exciting. Oh, Rupi Kaur. Everyone says such bad stuff about her, but I like poetry. I know Twisted Tales. Okay. I did not know they had a coloring book. Goon with a Spoon. From Crook to Cook. These are great names. I did not know that they had a cookbook. I love Good Mythical Morning. Random page flip test. I don't know if I would eat this. Just a burger with hot sauce. Randomly flipping to another page. Okay. I also don't know if I would eat that. More cheesesteak? More sandwiches. What the heck? They shouldn't be doing that. Okay, I'm getting into this. They actually look just like the real Disney art. This is so cool. Excuse me? Why are they so beautiful? I mean, Ariel's my favorite, so I'm obsessed a little bit. I need to read this. Everybody's talking about this. I kind of think I should read this now that I read that. Oh, I love T. Kingfisher being out in the wild. This was good. I liked this. Hello, my beautiful favorites. I'm almost done reading this, kind of. I will finally read Fourth Wing because I need to know what's going on. I loved these books. These are both so good. Everybody hates that book. I've heard lots of good things about this and this. It's just, what a great book. I cannot believe that was disqualified from the Hugos. Now you can watch me just page through this book and scream. Okay, not me hooting and hollering over this book. I didn't know that these books were so good because every single concept had me like, and like I've heard of some of them before, so they weren't all total shocks, but other ones I had not heard of ever, and I guess apparently I should read them. We have that. We have that too. That one. Wait, do we? Oh wait, no wait. No, we don't have this one. I think. We have this one. We have the first one, Hero's Feast. But this is a different one, I think. Yawning Port. I was just talking about this. Okay, random flip test, and I would eat this for sure. Classic fashion. I'm only buying a D&D book because I don't have this one yet, and I want it. Wait, do I have this one? Do I have this one? I'm at D&D now. New shirt check. I think I just finished How the World Works, but I'm honestly not sure. The audiobook just ended super abruptly, so I was listening again. If I somehow randomly missed like 10 minutes of this audiobook or slightly more, that's fine with me, to be honest. Because I mean, I get it, you know? It's like, I get it with the point of what's going on. Like, sometimes you don't need the whole book to do all that. So this package just got delivered, and I think this might be my new laptop. It's really light. Like, this is, I don't know, maybe I didn't prove anything, but it seems really light to me. This is very nice. I can't believe they got me the same model laptop that I bought myself last year, I think it was. I'm gonna get so confused the whole time. I managed to get my grubby fingerprints on this thing and it won't come off, but this is my work laptop. This one's slightly different from my home one because this one has, I don't think it's like as colorful and stuff. Mine is like all lit up and colorful. And then this doesn't have, I think, the like fingerprint reader on here, but it is very nice and I like it. It would be bringing two laptops everywhere and they're not light. Even though this one seemed like it was light and everything like that, like carrying this plus my other laptop would just be a lot, and I would always be self-conscious of accidentally bringing like the wrong laptop to a work meeting, so I don't know how else I would actually do that. But if I'm traveling all the time, odds are I'm going to want to bring my laptop. This is also, it's Friday. This is my last day. That is a weekday before I start work again, which means I kind of feel like I want to make the most of it. Like there's certain things you can't really do during a work day as often, even if you're working remote. I feel like there's always a bit of like anxiety in trying to get back to your desk as fast as possible so that you aren't missing. And I think that that's sort of like a symptom of corporate work culture and everything, of like constantly always being available, and that's not really feasible for everybody, and you're allowed to go out for lunch and that shouldn't be held against you. But even so, that's still like something I am learning how to do effectively. I'm still really bad at not like giving myself peace and like not being anxious all the time. I just am always very worried when I'm working because I want to do a good job and I don't want to, I don't know. I've dealt with like imposter syndrome and being micromanaged and everything. So I guess I'm just hoping that I can like, you know, enjoy this last day. It's very, very like nice and sunny out and everything. So I think there's at least a little bit of time for like a walk. This sounds so sad. I am going to a 4-H event later with my sister, and then my boyfriend's picking me up and we're gonna go see Dune 2. So there'll be plenty of fun activities and everything today. And it's just like the enjoyment that I am doing something else on a work day where a lot of people are still kind of like stuck in their office, and I can enjoy the fresh summer air, and often that's like the thing that I want to feel. It's not summer, but it just feels like it's summer. It's like if I'm working inside and I can just see like how beautiful it looks outside, all I want to do is just go frolic for a little while and then come back, because it's a lot hotter and sweatier than I actually remember it being, but it just looks so beautiful. And I think that's all I really want to do, is just like enjoy it outside, take my Zyrtec and get out there. I took a nap today. That was part of my like exciting thing that I wanted to do on a weekday before I started work again, because the joy of taking a nap and like sleeping in a little bit, like I still had to wake up early for certain things, but then I slept in until like noon. It's so nice to do that, especially because I think if you're doing it on a weekend, it's very easy to feel like you're wasting your weekend because you only have 2 days. So being able to do it on a weekday is a glorious, beautiful thing. Speaking of reading, listening to The Mimicking of Known Successes, which is a murder mystery on Jupiter that happens. This guy is on a train platform and he just disappears, and it turns out he's extremely not liked by most of his colleagues, that he just kind of talks about his own work and isn't very nice to everybody. So when he perishes, not a lot of people are like that knowledgeable of him because they didn't really get to know him that well. And so the main people are investigating this. It is, I guess, kind of like a detective and a scholar at the school where this happened. I'm really hoping for like a Sapphic Rosolian Isles situation here, because that was like the peak ship when I was first, I don't know, like observing murder mystery shows and stuff like that. I do always feel the culture shock every time they're like, we're on Jupiter, and like, you know, that's where we are, we're on the Giant, and I'm like, what? Because every time I'm listening to this, the narrator is extremely English, and they're just talking about like eating scones and tea and then investigating at the academy. And I always just kind of forget that they're on a different planet, because so far there's nothing sci-fi about it. And maybe that's like my American nationalism that's kicking in, where it's like, well, why are they British if they're on Jupiter? As if like we're the only American people that can get to another planet. They've talked about like the end of the world and everything. They're like, remember when the end of the world was happening and they brought all of these different animal species over here and they had them preserved basically like in test tubes, but then they thought like we need to like make as many of them as they can so they can frolic around. But now there's all these like rats and cats that are running around on the platform, and aren't we all sorry now? And I'm like, I would not be upset about a bunch of stray cats. That's great. Even like the stray rats that are in the subway platform in New York is not a problem for me. Because I did fall asleep listening to that, and then when I started again, it was like chapter 11. And I was like, all right, we're going to go back to chapter 3 where I fell asleep, and we're going to continue from there. So I will update you when I've probably finished the book and let you know what I think, because it's about like a 4.5 hour audiobook. Oh, I had something else that I wanted to say, which was I spent a little bit of time re-listening to part of I'd Really Prefer Not to Be Here With You, because I was reconsidering what my rating was, and I feel like it's so bad to like immediately rescind to 5 stars, but I was thinking about it and I was like, is this really a 5-star book, or were a couple of the stories 5-star stories, and is that what it really was? So I went back. Upon further reflection, I guess, I'm actually dropping my rating to 4.25 stars. I still thought it was a great book. I really enjoyed particular stories in it, especially The Holographer, and also the last story, which was Mental Diplopia, and The Now of Now. Those are the 3 stories that I think particularly stood out to me in not only concept, but execution, the characterization. There were also a lot of other stories in the collection that I really, really enjoyed too, but there were a couple in there that I was like not as huge of a fan of. Not for any particular reason that I didn't like them, but I just wasn't as incredibly hyped as I was for certain other stories. I also am, I forgot to mention this before, participating in Realmathon. I am in the Realm of Blood category. You're able to like claim a realm, and then you can add points to your realm by reading certain prompts with the books that you're reading. And you don't have to read for a particular book prompt. You can just read a book, and then it will already give you points, but you can get additional points on top of that for fulfilling prompts. But you can also take away points from another team. So I have been kind of beating on the Realm of Shadows just because I know they have a lot more people. I picked Realm of Blood mainly because Steph and Sid are the hosts of that one, and also I knew I was going to be reading a lot of books that either had red on the cover or a person on the cover, and those are the particular prompts that do extra things for that category. So I felt like it all was making sense and everything like that. But I also think all of the other realms that there are really cool, because each of them like has a little bit of like lore to it, and it's a very fun idea. That's really fun. I also really want to read more and watch G's video for the Magical Readathon that's going to be happening next month, because I don't think I've ever really fully successfully completed the Magical Readathon any year, or ever even really like participated beyond like a very vague sense. I'm such a huge fan of all of G's readathons because I think they're so smart and they're so cool. They are so in-depth and amazing. The maps and the like enormous amount of work that goes into the class creation and the magic system and everything, I think is so extraordinary. It's very approachable for anybody to join and read at any point in time as a member of the readathon, even if you haven't participated in years prior. So I think that that's just so amazing and fun. Hi, I just got back from watching Dune 2. It was really good. I know that this is a very long movie and everybody keeps saying that it's super long, it's like 3 hours, but I felt like that was good. I really don't enjoy it when an adaptation doesn't do the book justice, because it's not long enough to be afforded the space and room to actually make a good story shine on the screen. And this movie definitely had plenty of time, not to mention this is part 2 of a 2-part movie series just to describe one book. But I've actually not read the book Dune at all, and now I really want to because it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think that the things that especially appealed to me were the like political machinations that are happening between all of the different ruling houses and families. I also really like stories of like rising up in the middle of a war to try to fight for what's right, but then also the like struggle with power. There is also this element of like seeing the future and what might really happen as you know, war comes to pass and as certain events take place. If you know what's coming based on like the ability to see the future in the story, that has a huge impact on how people also see you. They did a really good job directing it. I was so surprised to see a whole bunch of actors that I knew, and I was like, whoa. First of all, Christopher Walken is in this, and that's who he is in the movie? Okay. I have heard that they're going to do another movie. I don't know if they're going to stop there, but I think this third movie would be covering the second book, which is Children of Dune. I just looked it up, and actually book 2 is Dune Messiah, and book 3 is Children of Dune, so just correcting myself there. Continue on from there with the rest of the books, but I'm not sure. I mean, the track record for Hollywood actually adapting multiple books in a series is not extremely high as far as like quality, but I think that that also is very dependent on like what are you adapting. I actually really do want to read the book now because I feel like there were many parts that could have been you know, like contextualized better, and that there were parts that were meant to be expounded on further, especially if you have the time that exists in the pages of a book. You can go as in-depth as you want, but a lot of this is like a character study of the main character, and there's like a very big transition that happens in the middle of the movie, and I wish that it had been explained better on screen. I've heard, you know, very mixed things, honestly, about the Dune books. There's a lot of people I know who don't particularly like them, but my boyfriend loves these, and he has read a lot of books that I've told him to, out of respect for him, and also because I actually am, like, genuinely interested in everything now that I've seen the movies. I'm going to give Dune a shot. So, here's hoping. But probably not in this vlog. I'm probably going to end the vlog just about here because I finished The Mimicking of Known Successes. It is not the end of March, but this vlog's getting a little bit long, and also I am going to be starting my new job tomorrow, so I thought that would be a more interesting spot to pick up on a new vlog. The Mimicking of Known Successes was the one that I said was a murder mystery on Jupiter. That's not exactly true. It was more of a disappearance case, and I do have to take back the part where I said, like, there's not that much sci-fi stuff in this that says that they're on a different planet, but actually that is not true, Ellen. Once we got to, like, the bigger conclusion of the book, where I understood more about, like, their railway system, because the whole thing is taking place on, like, the train platforms and stuff, I understood. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why this had to take place on another planet at the very least. It was purposeful. It wasn't just a gimmick to be like, this is a different kind of murder mystery. And I was right that it is a Sapphic Rizzolian Isles situation, because we have our lead investigator that is like that very like sullen type of like, I'm super smart and I'm just doing my job here type of person. And then the like recording, she's like the person telling the story from her perspective and everything like that. She is in that other position of being the one who's like, you know, we are partners in this investigation. I kind of don't want this investigation to end. And also remember that fling that we had back in college. It was very exciting to watch that unfold and actually be right for once about a book being sapphic. I'm happy to have been right. I do think I'll probably pursue the sequel eventually, but not immediately because I have a few other things that I really need to read based on buddy reads and other future plans that I have for future videos. So that's about it. I'm gonna end my vlog here. I just finished up eating at one of my favorite cafes of all time. It was great. Got some very much needed work done, and started a new book, but I'll have to tell you about it in the next vlog. So, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for whatever's coming next, because you know there's gonna be more. And I'll see you next time. Bye.